Hey students, this is Professor Cocozella here with your intro video to Unit 3, the biggie, as I've mentioned before. This takes much time, much effort, and lots of in-between steps. So not to worry, it might seem daunting at first, but as we go through the process, you'll see if we take it step by step, you should be able to keep up and you should be able to produce a quality research paper that you can be very proud of. So let's dive in. As I mentioned to you in class the other day, we are going to be working within four very broad general subject areas, and you can choose among them and then narrow down your focus to an appropriate topic and then narrow that down even further to something that you can work with as a working thesis. This will go through revision. The most important part of this process is to make sure that you finally have an argument that hits the sweet spot, and that is that it is broad enough to be worth exploring, that you can actually find quality source material and evidence to support your point, but is narrow enough. And I find that the mistake most often made is that students dive into this with a very general idea of what they want to explore, but you must be able to narrow it down so that your paper has originality, has depth, and is something that you can end up feeling that you really researched a quality topic and did a deep dive. So here goes. The general broad subject areas are right here on the screen: business and economics, energy and environmentalism, health and medicine, science, technology, and ethics. So you'll note these are just general subject areas. You could go literally millions of different ways in terms of what you finally end up diving into. Do find something that is of interest to you. Don't try to pick something because you think it might be easy or even something that you did in another class. Make this be something original, but something that is of high interest. Perhaps you have a passion for something along one of these categories. So the first step is going to be that we're going to do a library instruction session, and that is scheduled for Monday. I would have preferred for that to be maybe Wednesday of next week, but we'll work with the time that was allocated to us by the library specialists. So in that session, they're going to be giving you an overview of everything available to you in terms of sources within the library. We'll talk databases, we'll talk how to search, we'll talk search terms, we'll talk things like how to limit a search, how to save your work, a little bit about citations, how to put it all together, how to get extra help, which is something that too many students don't take advantage of. There are plenty of resources and actually real live people that you can chat with via chat, or you can have an information session with face to face. You can have Zoom meetings with these folks. There's many ways for you to go about getting other brain power to help you out with this. At the end of the day, certainly it has to be an original product, excuse me, that is yours and yours alone. But there's no shame in asking for help along the way when it comes to figuring out what sources you need, what questions still need to be answered, and that sort of thing. Okay, so the assignments are as follows, and the dates for assignments will necessarily, they'll be flexible, and even some of these assignments might be flexible. I might end up eliminating one of them if it's just in our best interest, if we're getting too cramped up for time. So we will get this conquered, not to worry. So the first thing will be after Monday, probably by Wednesday of next week, I want you to have a topic in mind. You might not yet know your thesis, but you should have narrowed down one of these general subject areas to a more clearly defined topic that you want to try to approach. And the way I'm going to do this paper is I'm going to model a particular topic that is not one of the ones that you can choose. In other words, it'll be from a very different subject area. And that way we can go through the process with that model topic and see how we acquire sources, how we define a thesis, and so on and so forth. But the first step will be for you to actually at least have a topic in mind. And again, that will even be narrowed further when you finally get to a working thesis. And then you're going to find yourself a source on that topic. And maybe you can even do that on Monday during the library session if you have a real good idea of the direction you want to go in. But sometime during next week, you should have an initial source that explores this topic. And that might be a very general source. And that, again, may lead you to a more narrowly defined thesis. So then after that, we are going to get to the point where you will be making a claim. You'll submit a journal entry and you'll say, this is my working thesis. That's going to change. It's going to be revised. But that would be something that's a good starting off point. And then we're going to do something that I alluded to in this rhetorical analysis assignment, and that is you're going to identify issue and information questions that you need to have answers to in order to formulate your paper. And we'll go through that in greater detail in class. I have a dynamite PowerPoint on issue and information questions, and you will actually develop a set of questions. That is going to be an assignment. Then somewhere along the way in here, and I would say we're probably about 2.5 to 3 weeks away, maybe right before spring break, we will get around to mandatory one-on-one conferences. And at that point in time, you'll be able to tell me, hey, listen, this is the path I'm taking. This is the road I'm following. Am I on the right track? Am I on the wrong track? And at that conference, you should have acquired by then a couple of additional sources. And then after that, a big step in this process is for you to do an annotated bibliography. And that means that you will be providing me with entries for all of the sources that you've gathered. Now, I'm a big believer in unconventional sources, so I do not want you to be gathering just print articles from journals and magazines and newspapers. Certainly they'll come into play and you'll probably end up having about 4 or 5 of them, but I want you to think outside the box as well. And by that I mean I want you to have a visual, and that could be a photograph, it could be a graph, it could be a bar chart, it could be a pie chart, something that is visual that pertains and connects to your thesis. I also want you to dig up a podcast, and I don't mean some kind of jokey comedy show kind of podcast. There's lots of very serious news-related podcasts developed by experts in various fields, and I want you to hunt one of those down. The other thing I want you to take advantage of is how much information can be gleaned from government sources, from an agency, from a bureau, and that will obviously depend on the subject and topic you end up with. So after that, we'll talk about outlining. I typically don't require that you submit an outline. That will probably be done more as a peer review, maybe workshop kind of thing during class time. An outline is great for you to work with. That way you can sort out your sources and you can organize them and see which source would fit into which main argument that you're making. And, you know, that will feed into how you actually end up writing the final paper. Then you will write me a final paper. It's got to be 10 pages. It's got to be 10 sources. And we will have time to do a revision, but I do want to stress to you all, the final paper that you hand in to me, even though it can be revised, it should be top-notch quality so that the revision process shouldn't be a major overhaul. It should be more or less tweaking and just making better what should already be a very strong paper. So that is the process that we're going to go through. So step by step, we will take this. Assignment dates might change, assignments themselves might change, but as always, I will keep you very much up to date on that through announcements and through what I share with you in class. So do me a favor, do read this overview, read this front page of the learning module. And when it comes time for me to hand out the instruction packet for this paper, I really want you to read it very thoroughly. It's going to be about 4 or 5 pages long. And I even usually give a quiz on this so I can make sure that you understand the steps that are involved and what the process is all about. So that's it. See you in class.